Hey folks, welcome back. I'm David and we're here in my shop where I build E-War guitars. This is going to be episode number 7 of my entry into the Great Guitar Build-Off 2022 Scratch Build Competition. And I'm building a neck through design. And in fact, we're ready to get back on the neck now. So let me turn this camera down and kind of show you where we're at so far. And we'll carry on and we'll start working on this neck. So in the first few videos in this series, we were working on this neck blank and we had that all made up, and then I set it aside for a couple of weeks to let it just sit and do whatever movement it's going to do, and we got onto the body blanks. Now in the last few videos, we've gone ahead and we've gotten these body blanks this far along. They're all chambered and cut out, and even beveled off the edges a little bit too, and kind of got that started. But now that that's done and I've got the thickness of these body wings determined, I was able to go ahead and surface down the neck, so we're about the same thickness. I'm still a tad thicker, but we're going to surface this off on the CNC machine before we finish the neck, which will bring it down right to the right thickness. And anyway, so now it's time to put the body wings aside and get back on this neck. Now that it's had a little chance to rest and do whatever movement it's going to do. So this is going to be a tilt back headstock. And so I'm going to have to do a scarf joint on this thing, which is a little bit tricky with these tapered stripes, but so far I've had pretty good luck doing it. And so I spent a little time this afternoon, and I got my scarf joint laid out. I got it all figured out where it's going to go, where I'm going to cut it. We're going to go ahead and cut it right here, and then we're going to take this top portion that we cut off. We're going to bandsaw it out about 5/8 of an inch thick. We're going to plane that. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to glue it back onto the remainder of the neck. And if all my layout marks are correct, that should work out just right. So I cut this on my bandsaw, and I've got this little jig here I've made up, and it basically holds my neck at a 14-degree angle. I've got a little T-track in the back that runs on the slot in my bandsaw. So we're going to clamp this neck onto this thing. And then once the cut is made, we're going to take the two pieces and we're going to stick them back together, and I'm going to surface off that mating surface on the CNC machine. But anyway, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go get this thing set up on the bandsaw and get cutting away.
Are we only half alive? Embers drifting in the night, looking, wandering all the time. We seek a kingdom. This is not my home. This skin and bone. The daylight will reconcile the dead and the gone. Let the kingdom come. Long have we been on the road.
Okay, so that came out pretty good. We've got a nice, fairly nice cut. Of course, we got bandsaw marks all over it. We got this guy here thinned down to 5/8 of an inch. Now what I have to do is I have to stick these guys back together just like this. And I want to set it so they plane out as good as possible. And it looks like right when I'm on this, right when those two edges meet right there, that is pretty darn close. So I'm going to use some super glue and tape, and we're going to tape this guy back onto the other one, and then I've got a jig on my CNC machine over there that will surface these two off and get them to lay exactly on the same plane. So that is the next step we're going to do.
Rising from these broken stones, we see the kingdom. Oh, this is not my home. This skin and bone. The daylight will reconcile the dead and the gone.
Okay, so that is looking really nice. That thing planed out just beautifully with the two of them together. And this is planing out beautifully here too. That CNC is kind of a lot of work. It's more work than using a bench plane or something to plane them down, but I have found it's the most accurate way to get that to fit like that and to get a dead-on 14-degree angle. So that fit looks pretty good too. Now what I've got to do, instead of just flushing up the edges of this board, what I want to do is I'm going to line up the stripes right here, like so, and then also flip it over, because the stripes are the important thing. Everything else is getting cut off. And then I'm going to flip it over and align the stripes on this side too. And how those stripes align is how I'm going to clamp it and glue it in place. So that is what I'm going to do.
These aching bones, the fallen, the crucified, arise with the dawn, let the kingdom come. This is not my home. This skin and bone, the daylight will raise to life the dead and the gone. Let the kingdom come. Let the kingdom come.
Okay, so I pulled this guy out of the clamps this morning, and I'm pleased. I've got a nice alignment with my stripes here, and got a nice alignment with the stripe in the back too. So when I wind up cutting all this out, I should have a decent alignment going up in the back. Of course, top's going to get covered. So what I've got to do now, the next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and cut out. I've got my 5/8 headstock here. I want to go ahead and cut out the rest of this neck all the way up to where the volute's going to go, and then surface the back of this on my spindle sander, because while this is a great big square board, that's going to be easier to do than after when I get it cut down like this. It's just going to be harder to hold it on the spindle sander. This way it could travel along the edge here and be a little bit easier to do that. So that also means I'm going to go ahead and plane off one side here, so I can ride it on top of my thing, because I've got a bit of an offset. Like I said before, my goal was to line up the stripes, not necessarily line up the outside of these pieces, because the neck blank is so much wider than what the neck is going to wind up being. I've got plenty of room to trim this up on the edges a little bit, just to get a nice flat surface to work off of. So anyway, once I get that done, I'm going to head back over to the CNC machine and start my operations on there. So if you guys have watched any of my previous videos in this building series, you'll know I like to use fixtures on my CNC machine, and I'm always trying to develop a fixture that I can not only use for this particular guitar, but will hopefully be usable going into the future. So this is my neck fixture, and as you can see, I've got two pins here which land at this spot, these two spots in the neck, and these two pins are perfectly centered on my 4-inch wide fixture, and I have these two holes drilled with my CNC machine perfectly aligned on the center of the neck blank. And also I've cut a very narrow line through here with the CNC machine that is parallel with the two outside edges of this thing. And so when I put this fixture onto the neck, I can also check it based on the center stripe, how well it hits on that center line. So I do all that to try to make this neck as perfectly centered as I possibly can, because all the operations that are going to happen to this neck are going to be determined by this fixture and how well the neck is stuck to it. So anyway, necks are a little bit tricky. They're longer than the CNC will cut, so I have to do it in tiled tool paths. So you can see I have a groove cut here and also a groove cut way up here too. I hope that's in the camera. So this is tile 1 down here, the end of the neck. This is tile 2 here, and this is tile 3 up here, which is going to be the headstock area. Anyway, so, and I also have lines set on the edge of this thing too. So once my neck blank is affixed to this, this becomes the part that I can push up against the fence on my CNC machine. And it's also the part that I could slide and line up on the 0 point at each of these 2 marks, as well as the very end, which is going to help align my tool paths correctly. So anyway, that's what we're going to move on to next. We're going to start doing the operations on this neck once I get this cut out. And hopefully you'll be able to see a little better what I'm talking about when we start doing that as far as the use of this fixture.
Falling back asleep with the memory buried deep. We don't want it, all we are. Here and now, sit fixed apart. Someone tell me.
Okay, so that came out well, I think. I've got a decent thickness here. I'm still right at 5/8 of an inch thick, which is a bit too thicker than it needs to be. So I'll be able to sand that down some more as the neck progresses on. And I got a decent spot with my little curve for the volute here. That's a good starting place anyhow. So anyway, so the next thing we've got to do is it's time to get this thing stuck onto my my neck fixture, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to get this. Now my goal is to make sure that this line that goes down the center here is going to be right on my center stripe from end to end, and it should be very close. But I've got that to look at to just confirm that.
With our sons, so plead for everyone, singing grace and peace to you. Mirrored fangs and helpless youth, we were once a righteous few. Look deep and spit the truth. What have we become? What have we become?
Okay, so I've got my fence that's in place here, and it pretty much stays in place. I've got 2 dowels that hold it straight, and I know it's running right along my grid here, so I know that's nice and straight. And parallel with the y-axis, really nice. Now here's my neck blank with the fixture stuck to the back, and it's centered up good. Oh, and also I have my my CNC machine. I used the 30-degree bit that comes to a very fine point, and I zeroed it out right here, and I've got a little circle on that to remind me. The fixture here will ride up against my fence, and I've got my 0 point right here. And what I'm going to do is each tool path I do, like for instance, I'm going to start with lining up the fixture on my 0 point here for the tile tool path number 1, which is going to cut up about here somewhere. And then I'll slide it for my next mark, bring it down, line it up there, lock it back in, and cut tile tool path number 2. And then when it comes to number 3, which is the angled part of the headstock, I've got a fixture to go back on here that'll hold this at the proper angle and allow me to work on tile tool path number 3. So I'm going to start with this. I'm going to push it up against there, tight against my fence. I'm right on my 0 spot right here. Make sure I'm in there good. Now I've got this other piece that's going to basically hold everything in place for me.
What have we become? Sister, my sister, do you feel something yet? We're a little or plenty, bowing down nonetheless. My brother, dear brother, hold fast in the midst. All is working against you, but you've got confidence. It's the taste on my tongue, it's the tang in my mouth. Double down on the cause, little room for the doubt. It's the body of bread, It's the blood and the wine. We were once a righteous few. Look deep and spit the truth. What have we become? 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 What have we become?
Okay, so that came out really nice. I've got my truss rod channel, the main part of it cut in, and I got the thick end here at the end. I've got to do some work on it, of course, clean it up and get it in. I've surfaced this whole thing, and the transition came out beautifully right here. I haven't put a straight edge on it, but let me see. I mean, that is very nice right there. That transition looks good. I think that looks really good. Okay, and I've got my shallow, I did a shallow profile pass all the way around the edge here, and I stopped it up here before I get to the angled part of the headstock. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and take this over to my bandsaw. I'm going to cut this out. I'm going to remove it off of the fixture, of course. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out so when I actually do the final trimming of this neck, it's not cutting all the way through that wenge, because that's almost 1 3/4 inches thick. And that'd be a lot of work on my CNC. So I'm going to go ahead and trim this out, and I'll just cut it out up here. I'll just get this out of the way for the headstock, and then put it back on my fixture and continue on with the rest of the milling operations.
What have we become? What have we become? What have we become?
Okay, so far we've done all the milling operations in tile toolpath number 1, which is down here and it comes up to this line here, and tile toolpath number 2, which goes from there up to just where it breaks into the neck. I'm just past the nut line right here. And so now we're on to tile toolpath number 3, which is the angled part of the headstock. So in order to get this headstock laying perfectly flat on the CNC, I made this little the fixture here that'll clamp down to the CNC like so, and the neck will lay up here like this, okay, with the neck on an angle, and then the headstock comes off over here. And you can see I've got these 4 dowel pins in here, and I've got the corresponding dowel pin holes in my fixture, the neck holding fixture. So I should be able to line it up like this, something like that, clamp this thing down to the CNC machine, and I should have a nice flat surface. And all my tool paths are created for the 3rd tile to start right here. So it should cut out the profile of the headstock, drill my tuner holes, cut in my little truss rod access deal here in a little medallion hole that I put in here, and it'll cut my E-War too. Oh, and I'm going to surface it as well, because I surfaced the neck 5/1000ths of an inch, but I still have a tiny bit of a lip here. So once I surface this down, it ought to bring that break angle into the exact right spot. So anyway, I'm going to get this jig over there on the CNC machine and get cranked up with this right now.
What have we become?
Well guys, I guess we better leave it about there for now. We covered an awful lot in this video, and we're finally getting something looking a little bit like a guitar now. So I'm really happy with the way this thing's coming out. I love the way that neck through goes through the body wings like that. I'm really loving that. And I really like I did that little detail that I did in the last video in the back. I did it on the front here too, where I inlaid that little piece of veneer in there. I think that's really cool. I'm going to start doing that on a lot of my guitars, I think. It's just one of those happy little accents that turned into something cool. Anyway, I hope you all enjoyed the video. I'm loving learning how to use that CNC machine, and I love building guitars, and I love making these videos too. So anyway, if y'all come on back next week, we're going to continue working on this neck and maybe get the fretboard worked out and stuff like that. So anyway, I hope y'all have a wonderful week, and God bless you, and we'll see you all in the next one.